Hello, and welcome back to the Classical English Academy. I'm Anna.
And I'm Tom. We are so glad you're joining us today because we are talking about something truly game-changing for your English fluency.
That's right. Today's episode is all about one habit that completely changed my English and my life. Tom is going to share the exact daily routine that took him from freezing up in conversations to speaking with total confidence.
It's a simple habit, but it works like magic. But before we reveal exactly what it is, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Yes, if you want to improve your English with us, please like this video, leave a comment down below with where you are listening from, and share this episode with a friend who is also learning English.
Your support helps our channel grow so we can keep making these lessons for you. All right, Anna, are you ready to dive into today's topic? Let's get started.
Tom, before we dive into this incredible habit that changed everything, I want to peel back the curtain a bit. When our listeners hear you today on the Classical English Academy, they hear a confident, fluent speaker. But you told me once that it wasn't always this way. Take me back to the very beginning, to the old Tom. What was your absolute biggest struggle when you were trying to learn English?
Oh, Anna, where do I even start? It's actually painful to remember sometimes. You're right. People see the end result, but they don't see the years of frustration. My biggest enemy, the thing that kept me awake at night, was what I called the translation trap. It was like having a slow, broken computer inside my brain that I had to use every single time I opened my mouth.
The translation trap. That sounds like something so many of our students deal with every day. Describe what that actually felt like in a real-world situation.
Imagine this. I'm standing at a coffee shop or in a business meeting. Someone asks me a simple question, like, what do you think about the new project? My brain would immediately go into overdrive. First, I would process their words in English. Then I'd translate them into my native language to understand the meaning. Then I would think of my brilliant answer in my native language. Then the hard part started. I had to find the English vocabulary, arrange the grammar rules, check the verb tenses, and finally try to push the words out.
That sounds absolutely exhausting. By the time you've gone through all those steps, the conversation has probably moved on to a completely different topic, hasn't it? It totally kills the natural flow of a real human connection.
Exactly. It was a nightmare for timing. I would be standing there with a blank look on my face for 5 or 10 seconds. People would look at me like I didn't understand. But the truth was, I understood perfectly. I just couldn't process my exit fast enough. It made me feel like a robot with a low battery. I could read complex medical journals or write long academic essays perfectly because I had time to think. But the second I had to speak in real time, I froze.
I think that's a very important point for our Classical English Academy audience. You can be smart in English on paper, but stuck in English in person. Did that struggle start to affect your confidence outside of just the language?
It affected everything, Anna. It started to bleed into my personality. I'm naturally a social person. I love telling jokes and sharing stories. But in English, I became the quiet guy in the corner. I lost so many opportunities, promotions at work, making new friends, even just feeling comfortable traveling, all because I was paralyzed by the fear of sounding foolish. I felt like I was trapped inside a glass box. I could see the world, but I couldn't participate in it.
It sounds like you reached a breaking point where you realized that studying harder wasn't the answer. You didn't need more grammar books. You needed a completely different approach to how your brain handled the language.
Spot on. I realized that if I kept studying the traditional way, I would just become a better translator, not a better speaker. I knew I had to find a way to stop the translation and start living in the language. And that's when I stumbled upon the habit we're going to discuss today.
That is a powerful realization, Tom. Many of our students at Classical English Academy feel exactly like they are trapped in that glass box you mentioned. They have the knowledge, but they lack the key to unlock the door. So let's get to the turning point. What exactly changed for you? What was that one specific aha moment and the habit that finally broke the cycle and let you step out of that box?
It's funny, Anna, because when I tell people what it is, they often look disappointed at first. They expect me to say I bought a $5,000 course or moved to London for a year. But the truth is much simpler, and yet it was absolutely life-changing for me. The habit was this.
I started narrating my daily life out loud in English.
Narrating your life? That's an interesting choice of words. When I think of narration, I think of a nature documentary or a sports commentator at a football match. Are you saying you became a commentator for your own life?
Exactly. That is the perfect way to describe it. I decided to stop being a passive student and start being an active participant in my own thoughts. I made a strict rule for myself. For just 15 minutes every single morning, while I was completely alone and getting ready for the day, I had to speak out loud about everything I was doing, everything I was seeing, and everything I was planning to do. No exceptions.
I can imagine that felt a bit strange at first. Give us a real example. What would a typical Tuesday morning sound like in the Tom podcast of life back then?
Oh, it was very basic at the start. I would be in the kitchen and I would say, "Okay, Tom, now I am opening the cupboard. I am reaching for my favorite blue mug. Now I am pouring the water into the kettle. The water is cold, but soon it will be boiling." It sounds silly, right? But I would continue. "Today is Tuesday. The weather looks a bit cloudy outside. I think I should take my umbrella because I don't want my suit to get wet before the big meeting at 10 a.m.
It sounds simple, but I can see the magic in it. You weren't translating a textbook. You were connecting English words directly to your physical actions. But what happened when you hit a wall? What if you were making coffee and realized you didn't know the word for spoon or grinder? Did you stop and look it up?
That is the most important part of the rule, Anna. No translating allowed. If I didn't know a specific word, I wasn't allowed to switch back to my native language to find it. I had to describe my way around it. If I forgot the word for kettle, I would have to say, "the silver machine that makes the water very hot." This forced my brain to stay in English mode. It trained my mind to find alternative ways to express an idea, which is exactly what you have to do in a real conversation when you get stuck.
That is a brilliant technique. It's like exercise for the fluency muscle in your brain. Instead of pausing the movie of your life to check a dictionary, you kept the film running. How long did it take before you noticed that the translation trap we talked about in the last section started to disappear?
Within just 2 weeks, something incredible happened. I woke up one morning, walked to the kitchen, and before I even realized it, I thought to myself in English, "I need to buy more milk." I didn't translate it from my native language. The English thought just appeared. That was my aha moment. I realized that by talking to myself out loud, I was teaching my brain that English wasn't just a subject I studied. It was a tool I used to exist.
Wow. So by narrating the boring parts of your life, you were actually preparing your brain for the important parts of your life. It's about building that bridge between knowing the language and actually living it.
Precisely. It moved the language from my short-term memory into my instinct. And once it becomes an instinct, the fear of speaking starts to melt away because you aren't calculating anymore. You're just communicating.
I absolutely love the logic behind that, Tom. It's like you were building a private gym for your brain. However, I have to be honest, if I started walking around my house narrating my every move like a character in a movie, my family might think I've lost my mind. I can imagine our listeners at Classical English Academy are thinking the same thing. How do you actually start doing this without feeling incredibly silly or embarrassed?
Oh, Anna, let me tell you, you will feel silly. In fact, if you don't feel at least a little bit crazy the first time you do it, you probably aren't doing it right. That is part of the process. My biggest piece of advice for anyone starting out is to find your safe space. You don't have to start by narrating your life in the middle of a crowded supermarket or on a busy bus.
So privacy is the key at the beginning. Where were your favorite secret spots to practice when you were first developing this habit?
My number one spot was the shower. It's perfect. The water is running so nobody can hear you, and you're already doing a sequence of simple tasks. I would talk about the soap, the temperature of the water, and what I was going to wear that day. Another great safe space is your car. When you're driving alone, you can speak as loudly as you want. People seeing you from outside just think you're singing along to the radio or talking on a hands-free phone.
That's a brilliant tip. It removes the fear of being judged, which we know is the biggest killer of fluency. But let's get into the technical side, the mechanics of the habit. You mentioned that if you don't know a word, you shouldn't stop. Do you just ignore the words you don't know, or do you eventually write them down?
This is step 2, and it's where the real growth happens. I always tell my students, keep a vocabulary victory notebook or a simple note on your phone. While you are narrating, if you hit a wall, let's say you're in the kitchen and you realize, wait, how do I say spatula in English? You do exactly what we discussed. You say, I am using the flat metal thing to flip my eggs. You keep the flow going.
I see. So you describe the object using the English you do have, but you make a mental note that there is a missing piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. Then, once your 15-minute session is over, that is when you go to the dictionary. You look up spatula, you see the word, and because you struggled to describe it earlier, your brain is now hungry for that word. You are much more likely to remember spatula forever because you actually needed it to complete a thought, rather than just seeing it on a random list in a textbook.
That is such a high-level learning strategy. In education, we call that just-in-time learning. You learn the word exactly when it becomes relevant to your life. It turns a boring vocabulary list into a personal mission. Do you recommend people do this for hours a day, or is there a specific sweet spot for time?
Definitely don't overdo it at the start. If you try to do it for an hour, you'll get exhausted and quit. I recommend the 15-minute rule. Spend 5 minutes in the morning narrating your routine, 5 minutes in the afternoon describing what you see out the window, and 5 minutes in the evening reflecting on your day.
So it's about frequency over duration. It's like a light switch for your brain. Every time you start narrating, you're flipping the switch from native language mode to English mode.
Precisely, Anna. And the more times you flip that switch throughout the day, the easier it becomes for the light to stay on. Eventually, you won't even have to think about flipping the switch anymore. The room will just be bright. You'll find yourself thinking in English while you're standing in line at the bank or waiting for the elevator, even without trying.
It's all about creating those neurological pathways. You're literally rewiring your brain to accept English as a primary language of thought. For our listeners who are ready to try this today, what is the very first sentence they should say to themselves?
Keep it simple. Start right now. Look at your hand and say, I am holding my phone and I am listening to the Classical English Academy podcast. That's it. You've started. You are now a narrator of your own journey.
This is the part I find most fascinating, Tom. When we titled this episode of the Classical English Academy, we didn't just say it changed your English. We said it changed your life. Now, to some people, that might sound like an exaggeration. They might think, how can talking to myself about my morning coffee possibly change my career or my future? How did this simple narration habit ripple out into the bigger parts of your world?
It's a great question, Anna, and the answer is one word: confidence. You see, for years, my fear wasn't really about the English language itself. It was about the judgment of other people. I was terrified of making a grammar mistake or using the wrong word in front of a colleague or a stranger. But when I started narrating my life alone, I created a judgment-free zone.
That makes so much sense. In your kitchen or your car, there's no boss to impress, no teacher to correct you, and no stranger to laugh at your accent. You were essentially practicing for the big game in a private stadium where you couldn't lose.
Exactly. I was failing in private so I could succeed in public. Because I was speaking out loud for 15 or 20 minutes every day, my mouth got used to the shapes of English words. My ears got used to the sound of my own English voice. Suddenly, when I had to speak to a real person, it didn't feel like a scary new event. It felt like something I had already done 1,000 times that morning while making toast.
So you essentially removed the shock factor of speaking. But tell me about the ripple effect. How did that internal confidence start showing up in your professional life?
The change was visible to everyone around me. Before this habit, I used to sit in the back of every business meeting, hoping nobody would ask me a question. I had great ideas, but I was too busy translating in my head to share them. But after a few months of daily narration, I stopped hesitating. One day, during a high-stakes project meeting with international partners, I found myself raising my hand. I didn't plan it. I just had a thought in English, and I spoke it.
Wow, was that the moment you realized the glass box was finally gone?
It was. I spoke for 3 minutes straight. I probably made a few small mistakes, but I didn't care because the message was clear. My boss was impressed, my colleagues actually listened, and for the first time I felt like a leader instead of just a student. That one moment led to me being put in charge of a new international team. I started networking with people from all over the world, something I would have been too terrified to do a year earlier.
It sounds like you finally unlocked your true personality. You weren't a different person in English anymore. You were just Tom.
Precisely. And that led to the biggest change of all. A senior management position opened up that required native-level fluency. Old Tom would have never applied. I would have told myself my English wasn't good enough. But narrator Tom knew better. I applied, I went through 3 rounds of intense interviews entirely in English, and I got the job.
That is incredible, Tom. It's a perfect example for our Classical English Academy listeners. The language is just the tool, but the confidence is the engine. By talking to yourself about the small things, like your shoes or the weather, you are actually building the mental strength to handle the big things, like a career-defining interview.
You hit the nail on the head, Anna. When you stop hesitating, you start participating. And when you participate, the world starts opening doors for you. My salary increased, my social circle expanded, and my stress levels dropped because I wasn't fighting with my own brain anymore. All of that started with me standing in my kitchen talking to a bag of coffee beans in English.
It's a reminder that big doors swing on small hinges. That tiny 15-minute habit was the hinge that swung open a whole new life for you.
You know, Anna, we've talked about the aha moment and the big career wins, but we have to be honest with the Classical English Academy listeners. This journey isn't always a straight line up. There will be days where you feel like you're talking to yourself and nothing is happening. You might feel like your vocabulary is stuck or your accent isn't changing fast enough.
That is such a vital point, Tom. We call that the plateau. It's that frustrating middle ground where the initial excitement wears off and the hard work begins. What happens if someone listens to this episode, tries narrating their life for a week, but then feels like they aren't actually improving? Do they just give up?
That is the biggest mistake you can make. My secret to success wasn't being the smartest student. It was being the most consistent. People often ask me, Tom, should I practice for 3 hours every Sunday? And my answer is always a loud no. In the world of language learning, consistency is more important than intensity.
I love that phrasing. So you're saying that doing a massive sprint once a week is actually less effective than a short jog every single morning?
Exactly, Anna. Think about it like going to the gym. If you lift weights for 10 hours straight on one Sunday, you'll just hurt yourself and quit. But if you lift for 20 minutes every day, you'll see a transformation in 6 months. Narrating your life is the same. Doing this for just 10 or 15 minutes every single day is infinitely better than trying to do it for 2 hours once a week. Your brain needs that daily reminder that English is a permanent part of your life.
So the goal is to make it an unbreakable daily habit, something as automatic and non-negotiable as brushing your teeth or drinking your morning tea.
Precisely. You don't decide to brush your teeth every morning. You just do it. That's the level of commitment you need for this narration habit. And to everyone listening to the Classical English Academy right now, I want to give you a very specific piece of homework. I don't want you to just listen to this and say, that was a nice story. I want you to take action.
I love a good challenge. What is the official Classical English Academy homework for this week?
Your homework is this. Pick one daily chore, just one. It could be washing the dishes, driving your car to work, or cooking your dinner. For that entire chore, you must speak entirely in English. Describe every movement. I am picking up the sponge. I am putting soap on the plate. The water is warm.
And even if you feel silly, even if your roommate looks at you funny, or even if you can't remember the word for detergent, you have to keep going, right?
Yes. Push through the awkwardness. That awkward feeling is actually the sound of your brain rewiring itself. Every time you struggle to find a word and then describe it, you are building a new bridge in your mind. The more bridges you build, the faster you will travel toward fluency.
It's a small price to pay for a life-changing result. Tom, thank you so much for sharing your story and this incredible habit with us today. It's clear that fluency isn't a gift you're born with. It's a skill you build, one narrated coffee at a time.
My pleasure, Anna. Remember, everyone, don't wait for the perfect time to speak. Start where you are, use what you have, and say what you're doing. I promise you, your future self will thank you for it.
Wow, what an inspiring conversation today. Tom, thank you so much for sharing that life-changing habit with us today. It really proves that you don't need a fancy classroom to become fluent. You just need a little bit of courage and 15 minutes a day.
My pleasure, Anna. I really hope everyone listening at home takes on the Daily Chore Challenge. Trust me, the results will surprise you.
I'm sure they will. And before we go, if you found Tom's story helpful, please make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. We post new episodes every week here at the Classical English Academy to help you reach your goals.
That's right. And don't forget to like this video and share it with a friend who is also on their English learning journey. Let's build a community of narrators together.
We also want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us, which daily chore are you going to narrate in English tomorrow morning? Is it making coffee or maybe driving to work?
We read all your comments and love seeing your progress. Until next time, keep practicing, keep narrating, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye for now.